For as long as humans have existed, one invisible force has shaped everything we know. It holds oceans to the Earth, keeps the moon in orbit, and binds the stars into galaxies. It gives us a sense of up and down, of falling and flying. It is gravity, the quiet architect of reality. But what if one day it simply vanished? Imagine this. You're standing on the ground looking up at a calm morning sky. Birds glide effortlessly, clouds drift, and everything feels ordinary. Then, without a sound, something impossible happens. The weight beneath your feet disappears. A pen floats from your desk. Your hair begins to lift. The ground no longer pulls you down because gravity no longer exists. At first, you wouldn't fly away instantly. There's still air, friction, and inertia, but within seconds, chaos would begin. Cars would drift off roads. Lakes would rise, tearing into the sky as great shimmering waves. Buildings would crumble, unanchored from their foundations. And humanity would face a kind of silence it had never known, the silence of falling without end. This isn't just a fantasy. Gravity isn't a force like magnetism or electricity. It's the warping of space-time itself. According to Einstein's general relativity, mass bends the fabric of the universe, and that curvature tells everything how to move. Remove that curvature, and motion itself loses meaning. Up and down vanish. Direction dissolves. Everything everywhere becomes unbound. The Earth, no longer held together by its own gravity, would start to tear apart. Rocks, oceans, and air would drift into space in a slow explosion of matter. You wouldn't feel it immediately. For a brief moment, everything would float in eerie suspension. And then, as the planet unravels, the sun's gravity would pull Earth's fragments into a new chaotic dance around it. Until, of course, the sun's own gravity vanished too. Now imagine the scale of that collapse, not downward but outward. Planets, stars, entire galaxies, all suddenly free of their cosmic tether. The universe would lose its structure. It wouldn't explode, it would dissolve like sand scattered in the wind. We take gravity for granted because it never changes. But it is the single thread that holds the universe's tapestry together. Cut that thread, even for a second, and everything we know, everything we are, would drift into nothingness. And so the question remains, if gravity disappeared, would the universe truly fall apart? Or would something deeper, something beyond our understanding, hold it all together? It happens in an instant, without warning, without sound. One moment the world is normal, and the next the laws of nature no longer apply. For a fraction of a second, everything appears calm. The air still holds its shape. The ground still feels firm beneath your feet. But then the smallest signs of change begin. Quiet, almost beautiful. A drop of water falling from a faucet no longer hits the sink. It simply hangs there, suspended like a pearl of glass. Then another, and another, until the air fills with floating beads of water, shimmering in the sunlight like tiny stars. You look down, and your shoes no longer press against the floor. There is no weight. The muscles in your legs relax involuntarily. They no longer have to fight the pull of the earth. You feel light. Then, before you can understand what's happening, your feet begin to lift. Slowly. Gracefully. As though the air itself is letting you go. Outside, the world transforms into chaos. Cars slide gently upward, breaking free from the asphalt like forgotten balloons. Trees creak as their roots tear from the soil, leaves spinning into the sky in spirals of green. Buildings groan under their own unanchored mass. Walls drift apart, ceilings collapse, and fragments of concrete and glass begin to float like snowflakes in a silent storm. People scream, but even their voices seem strange, lighter, stretched, as though sound itself has lost direction. Birds flap their wings in confusion, rising too fast, unable to control their flight. Clouds scatter, no longer drawn by Earth's pressure, and the atmosphere begins to peel away into the void of space. Within 30 seconds, chaos has turned into weightless stillness. Millions of objects drift, Furniture, cars, rivers, people, all suspended in midair. There is no falling, no landing, only floating. Then, at 45 seconds, a deeper effect begins. Without gravity, air pressure ceases to exist. The atmosphere itself starts to separate. Oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide spread outward in expanding waves. Breathing becomes harder. Not because the air is gone yet, but because it no longer knows where down is. By the first full minute, the world is a drifting mosaic of everything it once was. The oceans rise as shimmering blue domes, slowly stretching toward space. Mountains begin to crumble, releasing dust that drifts into orbit like smoke. The moon, free from Earth's pull, starts to wander, its orbit unraveling. And the planet that once felt so alive begins to look like a dream coming apart. In that first minute, humanity would realize something profound, that the force we never see, never feel consciously, was the only thing that ever kept us together. 60 seconds after gravity disappears, the effects begin to reach beyond Earth. What started as a local disaster is now rewriting the structure of the entire solar system. The moon, once locked in its gentle orbit, begins to drift away like a paper lantern released into the dark. It doesn't fall, it just moves, carried by inertia in a straight line away from Earth. The tides that once rose and fell with its pull vanish instantly. The oceans, now free, stretch outward, long tendrils of blue reaching for the stars. Our planet begins to lose its shape, slowly unraveling as its own mass can no longer hold it together. The sun still burns, but its fusion no longer has gravity to confine it. Hydrogen and helium that once formed its blazing heart begin to drift apart, forming vast clouds of plasma that expand into the solar system like fire spilling into the dark. In hours, the sun's brilliant sphere becomes a glowing mist. Its light dims. Its warmth fades. One by one, the planets that once danced around it begin to drift away. Mercury and Venus slide off their invisible orbits. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all continue in straight lines, forever leaving the place they once circled. In a single day, the solar system, once a delicate cosmic clockwork, turns into a cloud of wandering worlds. Space itself begins to feel empty. No gravitational wells, no paths, no orbits. Every object follows only the path it already has, an endless journey in whatever direction it was moving when the universe lost its anchor. Saturn's rings scatter, each particle drifting into space like dust. Asteroids leave their belts, colliding with what used to be planetary paths. Comets, once bound by the sun's pull, shoot off like glowing arrows into the deep. The solar system becomes not a family of planets, but a frozen explosion in slow motion. And yet, this is only the beginning. Beyond our system, the same story unfolds everywhere. Stars that once orbited in vast galaxies begin to drift away from one another. Galaxies themselves lose shape, their spirals unfurling like torn fabric. The Milky Way dissolves into a billion lonely suns, each moving in a straight, meaningless line across the void. There would be no more night sky as we know it. No constellations, no familiar patterns. The stars would fade one by one, not because they die, but because they move so far apart that their light can no longer reach us. And in that growing darkness, the last whispers of gravity's legacy would vanish. The silent reminder that everything in the universe, from atoms to galaxies, once followed the same invisible thread. Without gravity, there is no center, no orbit, no direction. Only motion without meaning and silence without end. Without gravity, the universe is no longer bound, but something even stranger begins to happen. Physics itself starts to lose coherence. Einstein taught us that space and time are not separate. They are woven together into a single fabric, space-time. Gravity isn't a force that pulls, it's what happens when mass bends that fabric. Planets orbit, light curves, time slows, all because space-time is curved by gravity's presence. But when gravity disappears, that curvature vanishes. And without curvature, There is no fabric left to stretch or compress. Time itself begins to unravel. At first, clocks simply stop ticking consistently. Their mechanisms still move, but time no longer flows evenly across the universe. Moments lose their rhythm. Seconds become meaningless. For light, which depends on the geometry of space to move, the path forward becomes undefined. Photons scatter, their direction lost. The universe starts to dim, not because the light has gone out, but because there's no longer a straight line for it to travel along. Imagine reality as a painting, its image held together by invisible glue. When that glue melts away, colors drift, shapes blur, and what was once a picture becomes an ocean of formless motion. That's what space-time becomes. A blur of disconnected events, moments existing without sequence or cause. Matter begins to disintegrate next. Atoms, the small solar systems of protons and electrons, rely on electromagnetic and gravitational balance to stay whole. Without that structure, atomic fields begin to fluctuate. Particles lose the reference of center. Protons drift from neutrons. Electrons fade from orbit. Matter itself starts to come apart. Energy, once bound to form, disperses into the void. There are no more stars, no more heat gradients, only a uniform haze of decaying energy. Entropy reaches its peak, and the universe becomes the purest form of stillness, a cosmic equilibrium, perfectly even, perfectly meaningless. And yet, there's something haunting about this stillness. Because even as motion, mass, and time vanish, the idea of existence remains. Not as something physical, but as potential. A universe with no gravity, no time, no direction, still is. A blank canvas, waiting for something to disturb it again. Maybe this is how it always begins. A collapse followed by quiet. And then, from the quiet, the birth of something new. As though the universe needs to forget itself before it can remember again. If gravity ever returned, space-time would ripple like a drum. Energy would condense. Particles would reform. And perhaps, from the ashes of nothingness, another universe would rise, unaware that this has all happened before. When the last traces of gravity fade and all motion settles into stillness, the universe becomes nothing. But what is nothing? Is it emptiness or the purest form of existence? Without gravity, there is no above or below, no before or after. No center to stand in, no edge to fall from. It is a universe without direction, without meaning, and yet, within that silence, something lingers. Perhaps gravity wasn't just a physical law. Perhaps it was the story the universe told itself, a way for chaos to organize, for energy to find form, for matter to remember where it came from. And when that story ends, the silence that follows is not destruction, but reflection. In that reflection lies a question. Does existence require structure to be real? Or can reality exist even when nothing moves, nothing changes, nothing is? Human minds struggle with the idea of nothingness because our world is built on contrasts, light and shadow, sound and silence, motion and rest. We measure life through change. But if all change stopped, if every atom, every thought, every heartbeat froze, would reality itself stop? Or would it simply become eternal? Perhaps, without gravity, the universe wouldn't end. It would simply become complete. A perfect equilibrium where every point in space is equal, balanced, timeless. A moment so still that it feels infinite. Maybe that's what creation truly is. The pause between cycles, the breath between heartbeats, the stillness between universes. And maybe in that stillness, something begins to stir again. A flicker. Spark. The whisper of gravity returning, ready to weave the cosmos back together once more. Imagine it, the silence of a universe without pull, without direction. A universe that has forgotten how to move, how to fall, how to exist. And then, a tremor. So faint that it cannot be seen, only felt. A ripple through the void, small at first, like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Space begins to stir. Energy twists. A single spark of curvature bends the nothingness, and from that curve, motion returns. Atoms begin to hum. Light finds a path. The first grains of matter gather, drawn together by the soft touch of gravity reborn. It is not violent. It is not sudden. It is inevitable. Like a memory the universe could never forget, gravity returns, reweaving the broken tapestry of space-time. Stars ignite once more, galaxies spiral into form, and the vast silence fills again with light and rhythm. And somewhere on a small world, perhaps new eyes open for the first time, unaware that before them, everything had once fallen apart. Gravity, it seems, is not just a force. It is the rhythm of existence. The balance between chaos and creation, between movement and meaning. It holds not just planets and stars, but the very idea of connection, the invisible thread that ties every atom, every moment, every life together. So perhaps the lesson of this impossible thought experiment is not about physics, but about balance. About the quiet truth that even the smallest force can hold infinity in place. Because if gravity ever disappeared, if everything drifted apart, the universe would still remember how to come back together. And maybe that is the real miracle. Not that gravity exists, but that it always finds its way home.